Years ago, Jurgen Klopp said something about Luis Diaz that most people ignored.
What a player can say when we were looking at him, it's not so easy to bring in a player in the winter without any kind of preseason. But with Luis it was so interesting because the way he plays is exactly, played at Porto is exactly the way we wanted him to play here, so he didn't have to change really.
At the time, it sounded like a manager hyping his own signing. But last month, Diaz scored at the Bernabeu to knock Real Madrid out.
Diaz, he has a shot! It is a magnificent shot!
A week before that, he won German Goal of the Year. And right now, he has more goal contributions than any Liverpool attacker this season. Liverpool spent £580 million on replacements and couldn't replace him. And by the end of this video, you'll see why everything Klopp said wasn't all about praise. It was a warning. Luis Diaz didn't come from a traditional academy. He was grinding through the lower divisions of Colombian football before Porto came calling. And at Porto, something clicked. In the first half of the 2021-22 season, Diaz scored 14 goals in 18 league games. He was direct and aggressive, a winger who didn't just beat defenders, he terrified them. Liverpool were watching, so were Tottenham. And when Spurs made their move in January, Klopp acted fast. Liverpool paid £37.5 million, rising to $50 million with add-ons, a mid-season signing, a statement of intent. And Diaz didn't disappoint. His Premier League debut against Leicester was so impressive that Klopp called it one of the best first games I saw from a new player. Within weeks, he was starting in finals. Within months, he was winning trophies. Diaz helped Liverpool win the FA Cup and the League Cup. He was named man of the match in the FA Cup final against Chelsea, a performance so dominant that Klopp couldn't contain himself.
What a boy, what a story, what a player. But he should have scored. The speed he has is insane.
But it wasn't just the goals, it wasn't just the pace, it was what Diaz did without the ball too. Under Klopp, Liverpool's system demanded relentless pressing from the front three. Salah, Mane and Firmino worked from the front, and when Diaz arrived, he slotted in like he'd been doing it his whole life. He pressed like a man possessed, he tracked fullbacks into his own half, he won the ball back in dangerous areas and turned defense into attack in seconds. Klopp said Diaz fits Liverpool like a glove. The work rate of the Colombian was well recognized.
We saw him playing and it was like easy to fit him in. With all the things he's doing. He's obviously a really talented player with an incredible work rate.
That quote wasn't throwaway praise, it was precision. Klopp had spent years building a system that required a specific type of winger on the left. Mane had been the prototype, and when Mane left, Klopp believed Diaz was the heir. The performances backed it up, the trophies backed it up. But somewhere along the way, the people making decisions at Liverpool stopped seeing a system player. They started seeing an asset. And that's where everything changed. Here's the part nobody talks about. When Luis Diaz was lighting up Anfield, he was one of the lowest paid players in Liverpool's squad. His wages were between $55,000 to $65,000 per week. That made him only the 16th highest earner at the club, below backups, below players who barely featured. For context, Darwin Núñez was on £140,000 a week. Diogo Jota was on similar money. Cody Gakpo, who arrived after Diaz and plays in the same position, reportedly earns around £250,000 a week now. Diaz looked at the numbers, he looked at his performances, and he asked for a raise. The request wasn't outrageous. He wanted somewhere between $125,000 to $150,000. Liverpool said no. Not let's negotiate, not we'll meet you halfway, just no. The club's position was clear. Diaz had 2 years left on his contract. They weren't going to reset the wage structure for a player who wasn't in the top tier of earners. FSG had rules, precedents, a system. But Diaz had a system too. His system was winning football matches. In 2024, he angled to leave. Liverpool convinced him to stay. In 2025, he pushed again. This time, he stayed long enough to help Liverpool win the Premier League. In that season, he had 50 appearances, 17 goals, a league winner's medal. And still, the contract situation didn't change. So when Bayern Munich came calling with a €75 million offer in 2025, Liverpool didn't fight or negotiate. They didn't try to keep the player. Klopp had called the player we really wanted. They took the money. The official line was that the fee was too good to turn down. A 28-year-old winger with 2 years left on his contract, demanding higher wages. Sell high, reinvest, move on. It made sense on a spreadsheet, but football doesn't live on spreadsheets. Djibril Cissé, who knows what it means to wear the Liverpool shirt, didn't mince his words. The question nobody asked at the time was simple. What happens when you sell a system player and try to replace him with signings who don't fit the system? Liverpool was about to find out. Liverpool didn't just sell Luis Diaz, they tried to upgrade. In the summer of 2025, FSG opened the checkbook like never before. Over $580 million spent, 4 major signings, a complete overhaul of Arne Slot's squad. On paper, it was a dream window. Liverpool had just won the Premier League. Now, they were adding elite talent across every position. The message was clear. We're not just defending the title, we're building a dynasty. But something went wrong almost immediately. Wirtz, the crown jewel of the summer, couldn't find his rhythm. In the first 26 Premier League appearances, he registered just 2 assists, no goals. The player who had orchestrated Leverkusen's unbeaten title win looked lost in Slot's system. Isak arrived with the weight of a $125 million price tag and promptly got injured. When he played, he looked isolated. 1 assist in 5 Premier League games before the setbacks piled up. And on the left wing, where Diaz had terrorized defenders for 3 years, Cody Gakpo. The numbers tell the story. In his last 10 Premier League games, Gakpo managed 2 goals and 0 assists. In his last 20 appearances across all competitions, just 3 goals and 1 assist. The explosiveness and fear factor was gone. At one point in November, Liverpool lost 8 out of 11 games. The champions looked broken. And while injuries played a role and new signings needed time, one truth kept emerging. Nobody was doing what Diaz did. The pressing from the front? Gone. The directness that stretched defenses? Gone. Liverpool spent £116 million on Wirtz. They're paying Gakpo £250,000 a week, and neither of them have matched what the £65,000 a week winger did before he left. The money they got for Diaz funded signings that haven't worked. The wages they refused to pay him now look like the bargain of the decade. And while Liverpool searched for answers, Luis Diaz was answering questions of his own in Munich. Luis Diaz arrived at Bayern Munich as the 3rd most expensive signing in the club's history, behind Harry Kane at €100 million, behind Lucas Hernandez at €80 million, €75 million for a 28-year-old winger who wanted out of Liverpool. Some questioned the fee, some wondered if he could handle the pressure of replacing Jamal Musiala in the starting 11 after the German's horrific injury at the Club World Cup. Diaz answered in his first competitive match. In the Super Cup against Stuttgart, he scored Bayern's crucial second goal in a 2-1 victory. Then he scored in his first Bundesliga game, then his second, then his third. 3 games, 3 goals. Bayern knew they had something special, but that was just the beginning. By February, Diaz had a hat-trick, a 5-1 demolition of Hoffenheim, where he looked unplayable. Harry Kane, his strike partner, couldn't stop praising him. In November, he scored a goal against Union Berlin that was later voted German Goal of the Year 2025. An impossible angle, a defender closing him down, a shot that had no right to go in, but curled into the top corner like it was drawn there by gravity. And then came the Champions League. In the round of 16, Diaz scored against Atalanta to reach 14 career Champions League goals, surpassing Jackson Martinez as the top Colombian scorer in the competition's history. But the real statement came in the quarterfinals against Real Madrid. Bayern hadn't won at the Bernabeu since 2001. They hadn't beaten Real Madrid in any competition since 2012. And with the tie leveled from the first leg, everything was on the line. Diaz scored the opener. A darting run, a clinical finish. Bayern won 2-1. A week later, in the second leg, Real Madrid pushed for a comeback. The game was heading into extra time, but Diaz had other ideas. One more goal to send Bayern through, and Diaz delivered. Bayern then lifted the Bundesliga title in the following game with a 4-2 win over Stuttgart. The player whom Liverpool wanted to cash out is now lifting trophies while his former club struggles. The final numbers for 2025-26 speak for themselves. Bundesliga, 15 goals, 13 assists in 30 appearances. Champions League, 7 goals, 3 assists in 11 matches. Only Kane and Stuttgart's Dennis Undav scored more Bundesliga goals. Only Michael Olise created more assists. Vincent Kompany even said that he fits really well in a team, which was exactly what Klopp always said he was. Liverpool scored 86 goals in their title-winning campaign. Their goal-scoring tally today pales in comparison, especially when Salah is on the decline. And this goal in particular made everyone take notice again. Liverpool knew that Diaz was the best player to sell. The contract expiration was coming. Diaz was in his prime. And the harsh truth for Liverpool connections today speaks volumes about the game. That sometimes it's not about football, it was about finance. Every time Diaz turns up for Bayern, the goals, the assists, and his work rate, it's a reminder of the warning Jurgen Klopp made about Diaz the day he was signed. The man-of-the-match moments, and the individual brilliance he possessed on top of his teamwork ethics. Liverpool are feeling the effects of a bad season, but they're not the only one. Check out this next video to see the brutal collapse of another Premier League club. See you there.